Warning. The following podcast contains politics, leftist politics, the whole truth, justice, American way thing. We live in a time where one has to post this. Progress is a dirty word, such as science and reason. My superheroes would weep. This podcast contains naughty language as well. The Russo brothers, wealthy, white, influential, don't find DC relatable. Okay, reality. What do you think?
He's faster than a speeding stroller, more adorable than a wet kitten, and able to get a stranger's attention with a single courtesy.
Excuse me?
This is America's latest superhero.
Don't forget to show love.
And the only superhero with the power to feed the homeless.
What do you think? Let's begin our podcast. All right. I hope you like that new intro and the little skit that I like to do every once in a while in the intro, after the disclaimers. So we're going to have a DC Pride episode. It's going to be fun. Part 1 is going to be about movies. Part 2 is going to be about TV shows. Part 3 is going to be about video games. Part 4 is about the fan base, and last but not least, it's about the comics. So I'm going to try and cover it all as much as I can. Thank you all for your support, and fuck yeah. Welcome to another podcast of DC Domingo. I guess, we're going to try and do some kind of positiveness. A lot of people have requested, that I make like a kind of a positive pro DC, kind of be like, oh my God, it's so much negative online. How do we put up with all that crap? And, how do you deal with all this shit? People ask me because, for as much of a grumper that I can be, I laugh to a lot of stupid shit that, people tend to assume. So people want to know, how the fuck do I stay positive? I tend to say it's mostly variety. I hardly have time for any one particular thing, so I'm always busy. Try to keep busy and try to work on yourself and just be more secure in your life. That's kind of my general outlook on life. And I guess this is going to be about DC Pride. One of the things that we're getting a lot of new fans. So we're trying to welcome them, try to educate them. We're getting a lot of kids who grew up in the 90s. And, I don't want to be like ageist about it and be like, oh, young kids don't know shit. It's like, well, young kids have it harder than we did. We didn't have the internet dictating what to think. We actually thought for ourselves. And, we don't want to become one of those, like, fringe groups that believes the earth is flat, or that the moon is made of cheese. None of that shit, And I think when you are not the popular person, people seem to think that you're into, like, conspiracies or making shit up or being in a bubble, when quite in fact, it's mostly contrary when it comes to DC and, the perception. We're kind of a band's band. We're kind of a director's director. We know our shit. We know where we stand. We kind of know more about comic book history than bloggers. We know more about film history than movie reviewers and critics. So when it all comes down to, we are secure because we know shit. If somebody tries to explain your life to you, you kind of go, fuck you, you don't know me. Even shrinks have a requirement you tell them about yourselves, so then they can deconstruct you. So, and I think we're going to break it down, in this. And first and foremost, I think that one of the things that people have to do is that movies are not the end-all, be-all events. This might be kind of shocking because I grew up with movies, and I've always dreamt of, seeing my superheroes on screen. But I can tell you that I got as much giddiness out of seeing the, albeit brief intro from Birds of Prey, where you see a Joker, in the, Hawaiian shirt and hat, and you get to see the 1989 Batmobile on the TV series. You get to see Catwoman and Batman briefly in that TV show, and that kind of was like exciting. I didn't care about the reviews of the TV show. I didn't care about the rating, the audience rating, the Nielsen rating. I didn't care about the special effects. I didn't care that I had a shitty TV that I was watching it on. All that stuff was trivial. My response to that those brief moments in that TV show were kind of like the euphoria that I had when I was a little kid watching Tim Burton's Batman, So I think that one of the things that signifies is that being a fan doesn't mean like shutting off critique. It just basically means loving shit. Loving shit you like, One of the things that I point out to people that compare it to sports is like, if you're the kind of asshole who only wears a jersey when your team wins, fuck you. You're not the real shit. You're just shit. If you're not like a 49ers fan right now, only when they're winning, which is like very rarely, then fuck you, It's like, I see it all the time, man, When the teams are doing good, you see more jerseys of the team, you kind of go like, where the fuck were you? So it's the same shit. So how to stay positive with that? If movies are not the end all, well, get yourself educated, DC has been making movies since the 1940s, So, yeah, you could, focus on the success of Marvel and cry about it, but that's like worrying whether or not your neighbors are having sex while you're having sex, which no sane person does. Like, I've never met anybody who's worried about somebody else, in their vicinity, making whoopee. Although I did have a very jealous roommate, but that's another story. He was not well at the time. But you know what I'm saying. It's like you can focus on other people's success and make yourself miserable. Like, I mean, it would be like me watching McDonald's outsell In-N-Out Burger and just go to In-N-Out Burger and be like, why don't you have the Szechuan sauce? Why can't you make a quadruple Big Mac? It's like, fuck that shit. Mediocrity is easier to consume by the masses. You can get Szechuan sauce from fucking another place. I'm pretty fucking sure. It's just like a trendy craze. If like fucking Taco Bell has like the 5-alarm chili, do you think us Mexicans are gonna be like, wow, Taco Bell really put us to fucking shame? That sauce is definitely something. We need to put our heads in shame. No, fuck that. It's just trends. So you need to get yourself educated. I mean, check out other movies you might have missed that are based on comics. A lot of people commented on like, oh my god, I didn't know that the Ninja Turtles were actually, published by New Line, that New Line was owned by Warner Brothers. That's like amazing. That's the first superhero comic book movie that is actually great. How the fuck did I forgot that? The answer is like, media mindshare. If the media, keeps saying, the Avengers is the first, the Avengers is first, the Avengers is first, you kind of forget shit. You kind of go, oh yeah, I guess so. But no, Ninja Turtles, man. Fucking classic movie, right? So check out other movies that you might have missed. For instance, like, we brag that Wonder Woman was one of the first, popular female, superheroes, but it wasn't the first at all. We had a kind of a cheesy, low-budget Supergirl movie. If you want to check that out, that's cool. I happen to prefer Tank Girl. It's another comic, kind of not very popular, but it's got a cult following. Check that shit out. Get yourself educated. Have you seen all the versions of Watchmen yet? There's a theatrical cut. There is the enhanced version with the awesome head commentary of Zack Snyder, with pop-up menus and stuff. There is also the animated comic book that comes with it, chapter by chapter. They animated pretty much every fucking panel. It's pretty long. There's also the director's cut, and the ultimate cut with the Black Freighter cartoon in it. So you got quite a bit to choose from. Have you seen them all? And speaking of like animated comics, back when the iPods got like color screens and stuff like that, they animated quite a bit. Apple, they animated a lot of graphic novels. So if you want to catch up on, I don't know, some of your favorite graphic novels, definitely pick up an animated comic book movie. I happen to have Red Sun, which is pretty fucking awesome. They just take the comic and animate it. And these are gems that I happen to know because I'm a consumer and I have good memory. All these fucking bloggers, they have like short-minded memory. It seems like they can only remember from Avengers 2 onward. They're like, they conveniently forget all the various products that, DC has had over the years. And that's the thing, though. People cornered themselves into thinking that the MCU formula needs to apply to DC. And, I kind of would suggest, reading up on DC history. Do you know there is an encyclopedia with like thousands of entries? Do you happen to know that there is like a year-by-year history of DC, book that is as thick as the encyclopedia? And there's also a giant book by Paul Levitz. It's actually a giant book. It was taking up most of the picture, where Paul Levitz is like kind of sitting down with this gigantinormous book. I wouldn't say that it's like it's like half his size. I mean, it's massive, and that's kind of a very, very detailed history of DC. I mean, why bother? I don't know. If you're a fan, you can check out the origins of all your, favorite superheroes and obscure ones. There's actually 80 years worth of history, beyond movies. I don't want to brag, but if you are kind of like, I want to know more about DC, I need more content, I'm like, fuck, dude, have you even like listened to the 2000 episodes from the radio show of Superman back in the day? Because they're making a movie about it. How during that audio radio show, the one of the informants of the FBI was giving away the KKK secret password of the day. and they're making a movie about it. Very interesting. And I mean, that radio show has more than 2,000 entries. So I mean, there are these wonderful worlds, beyond movies. Now, if you don't want to read DC stuff, or you don't like trivia, or you don't, if you're just like a, movie fan like me, one of the coolest things that you can do and find more value is get yourself educated, in cinema history, and watch really good fucking movies. Because a lot of the times, the way certain directors like Nolan, Snyder, even Patty Jenkins, David Ayer, the way these directors operate is that they have a visual storytelling. There are reasons why a movie is 2 hours long, and if you want to do layers, you can do symbolism with color, the size of the subject matter, the angle, composition, dark cinematography, light cinematography, slow motion, fast motion, and get yourself educated. Learn more about movie history, and pay attention. For instance, I mentioned Nolan, and he's currently working on a 4K resolution render of 2001: Space Odyssey before they altered the negatives. So he's working from the original negatives of Kubrick, and he's bringing that to 70 millimeter and IMAX, I believe, in the fall. Also, Criterion is releasing a extended cut of The Tree of Life, Terrence Malick classic that won the French version of the Oscar, the Golden Palme d'Or. And those are fucking great movies. They're visual masterpieces. But these podcasters and, hack critics, they don't fucking consider that kind of value in a visually striking medium like comic books. Apparently that's beneath them. It's beneath them to analyze all the things I mentioned in a Zack Snyder movie. So if you, for instance, have a very encyclopedic knowledge of cinema and a very encyclopedic knowledge of DC, once you go and check out, the DC classic movies, you're going to be like, oh, fuck. That's why these people like it. It's not that we're, like, living in a bubble, but it's more like we fucking know our shit. We don't act like our shit don't stink, but we just know what we fucking ate. To continue on that theme. So yeah, and another thing that you have to remind yourself is that DC is the trendsetter. You need to be proud of that shit. I grew up with a lot of music people, and whenever there were new versions of old songs, they mostly sucked. If you go back to listen to the original songs or even the original recordings by artists, I had 2 versions of Queens of the Stone Age. One was the album that leaked online before it was made into an album, and the tracks were a little bit different. I liked the one before the studio release, and when I saw Queens of the Stone Age on stage, I was like, fuck yeah, they're heavier for life, sure. And that's just one example how knowing things about the subject matter kind of makes you appreciate things more. We are the trendsetters, DC, and that's what you need to be proud of. DC is like, for me, it's the top, comic book company between Marvel and DC, because I know the history, I know the quality, and as someone who, has written and drawn comics, I see it. I don't need to be convinced. I don't need to, brag about that. That's like the popular hamburger that everybody loves now, and that's all I need. I know where Substance is located, and it's on DC. You know, just because the Marvel fans just started to get good movies, and they can't just say erases and quitties. They kind of keep moving the goalpost. Well, fuck that shit. Where you been? Marvel was almost going bankrupt and had to sell out movie rights that they now have to buy the whole studio to get the movie rights back to. So, fortunately, DC never was in that situation, and that's something that it's not made up. It's not a fact. It's not like a factless thing that we just pull out of our ass. That shit is fact. And if you stick with truth, justice, the American way, you're gonna find truth, justice, no matter what. So yeah, that's one of the things you gotta stay positive. Basically, you need to follow the fan rule. Talk about what you love, and if you can't find it out there, educate yourself. Now, one of the things that, if you have been following the great cinematic gems of directors that we got in the 70s, the Scorseses, the Coppola, the Spielberg, even George Lucas, they've all kind of been saying that there is something wrong with cinema in the United States. Throughout the whole world, we are getting improved cinemas, actually, with better seats. In my home country of Mexico, actually, there is something called VIP screening, and somebody complained about it on social media. They actually have tablets and waiters. They kind of walk between the rows, and they bring you pizza, they bring you food, beer, cerveza, alcohol, gum, ice cream, whatever. And it seems kind of like, if you're going to take the family and you really don't care what's on the screen, if you don't want to pick up all the nuance, fine, go for it. Also for cult movies that you've already seen, if you want to check out, I don't know, fucking RoboCop, I would love to get fucked up and wasted. I actually did a RoboCop and Starship Troopers back to back with my friend, and it was fucking great. I'd do that again, but I would need booze and food. So that's a kind of a social aspect of a movie. And those cinema experiences are more for Fast and Furious, or something that doesn't require a lot of attention, for every second. That doesn't mean it's bad, fuck, I can go check out a Rocky Horror Picture Show and be like, fuck yeah, let's do this, and it doesn't say anything negative about, Rocky Horror Picture. It's just, it's the kind of experience that you want to have. Now, what these filmmakers were saying is that definitely the art cinema is going away in the States, and one of the more grim realists is David Lynch. Twin Peaks, awesome director. I even like his Dune. It's fucking amazing. I grew up with it, but I still fucking love it. I didn't outgrow it. He says that art cinema is dead in the States. And while I do kind of see where he's coming from, there are a few local cinemas where I'm from that do cater to that kind of stuff. And I think what happened was, in the US, the internet connection is quite fast, and consumed television is really nice. So, for instance, if I want to go to my local cinema, it's like, $15. The seats are uncomfortable. There's all these assholes talking. The employees have a Marvel preference. I'm like, fuck. Why can't I get like a Batmobile that dispenses nachos, which is an item available in Mexico, by the way. At the cinemas in Mexico, yes. So why would I struggle to, find parking and pay for parking and buy food over there? And, when I have a nice 4K television here at home and I can just have really good picture quality, either disc or streaming sometimes, depending on the connection. So I think that's what's happening, is that art cinema is kind of going away in the States, but it's being replaced by on-demand. Vudu, the app and movie place, has some great focus on indie movies. I've seen some really good indie movies that otherwise I wouldn't have picked up. It reminds me of, going to the indie section at our local video rental place and finding gems. Where do I find other movie gems? I just follow people who love movies. There are so many releases that don't get, the light of day. For instance, when I went to France a few years ago, there was a movie with Ryan Reynolds and Ben Kingsley. And the title of that movie in France was different than the one in States, and I was trying to find it, and then all of a sudden it occurred to me that what I was seeing advertised in the French cinemas were a little bit more down to earth. Sure, I saw the advertisement for Fantastic Four, but in France and a lot of places in Europe, there's a demand for more down to earth entertainment that everybody can relate to. And I think that is the problem in the States. I have no issue with Hollywood being, left and kind of progressive, but I don't think it's progressive enough. We can't really let, rural USA not be represented. I know LA is full of Mexicans and I don't fucking see myself up there. So I don't think Hollywood is as progressive as it wants to be called. And also I agree with Tarantino. Movie prices are way too high. So what happens is that we have the chance to innovate. I've been enjoying HBO for about a year now, full subscription, because I want to pay for it and I want to enjoy all their back catalog. I want to watch The Sopranos legit. I used to rent discs of the seasons and I'm like, I forgot what was going on in one episode, blah, blah, blah. Now I can binge watch that stuff. Game of Thrones is popular. What else is there? Silicon Valley, it's my favorite comedy right now. So what we're seeing is that TV shows are becoming a nice giant medium here in the States and abroad. That's why I think it's really important for the DC Direct to take advantage of that. And I'll definitely talk about the TV shows like, Teen Titans. And when we get a glimpse, I'm pretty sure they're going to show something in Comic-Con. But, DC is available on lots of television, because while DC has been making movies since the 1940s, the serialized format of movie serials from the 40s and 50s became television. That's what it is. It's episodic entertainment. Same shit, different screen. So, for instance, like right now we got word that Fox has renewed Gotham for a 5th season. And if you've listened to my podcast, congrats. I've always said that, Gotham has one of the best fucking cinematography, and that includes camera work, lighting, composition, camera movement. They are really innovative for every fucking shot, dude. They know how to light it and keep me entertained. There are some shots in Gotham that actually have a much better mastery of the image than an MCU movie. The MCU movie, it's like you're lighting up a toy commercial. It's like, oh, we're scared of shadows. Make everything light. So that's pretty cool. right now we haven't received word on Lucifer. It's another DC imprint from Vertigo. Also sci-fi, Krypton. It's looking pretty fucking good. I got a brand new 4K cable box so I can watch it on demand, and I have a nice, really good 4K television, and Krypton really takes advantage of that. I am kind of enjoying it. I would like to see where they're going with it, but caught me by a fucking surprise. I was like, fuck yeah. And one of the things about it, people just hearing about Gotham season 5 being the last season, they're like, oh shit, maybe I should go back and catch up on it. Well, fuck dude, you got time. Go back and check out all the Easter eggs. I believe that if Comcast does indeed purchase Fox Studios and not Disney, they might actually continue both Lucifer and Gotham. Or they might sell their rights to DC Direct streaming service. But either way, I'm supporting those shows. Now, if you don't care for Flash, Legends, Supergirl, and Arrow, well, dude, the CW has other cool shit for you. They have the entire awesome season of Constantine. Have you checked out the CW Seed cartoons yet? Of Arrow, Flash, Ray, Vixen, and even there's an upcoming Constantine one. So you have plenty of fucking material, television-wise. And I think that's what DC Direct might do. They might even put all the back catalog of DC in one place. I, for once, haven't seen all the episodes of Lois and Clark. Again, when I had access to a video store, I was renting discs seasons by season. I haven't seen all the series, but what I like, it's a different Superman, kind of, romantic and kind of not very dramatic, kind of safe, different for sure. I've seen all of Smallville, and I've seen all the original Flash from the 90s. I haven't seen all the George Reeve TV show. Again, because, I was renting it disc by disc. I should fucking just buy them, Same thing with the CC's Batman and, also the Wonder Woman series. My girlfriend demanded that I watch the Wonder Woman series with her. So fuck yeah, dude. You have plenty of fucking television to catch up on. And like I said, movies are not the and-all, be-all of, entertainment. So, fuck yeah, be proud of DC, man. Come on. The other cool thing about DC Comics are the fan base. We tend to be a little bit more, original nerd. If you haven't checked out my last video, Marvel vs. DC, I kind of go through the history of the DC fan base. Growing up, there were always, cool kids who would wear an X-Men shirt or an X-Men hat or a Spider-Man t-shirt, and you'd be like, oh cool, you like comics, right? And they'd be like, what? So that's one of the problems that you run into when you have tons of posters. Whereas, yeah, you see Shaquille O'Neal have a Superman tattoo, but if you ask him, hey Shaq, what do you think of Superman in the comics, he would tell you everything. You're not dealing with stupid fan bases. I remember when they asked the actor who played Slipknot, who is of Native American descent, from Smoke Signals, actually. Adam Beach, I was going to say, Adam Squad, Suicide Squad. No, Adam Beach. People ask him, it's like, hey, what do you think about, your short-lived DC appearance? And he started talking about, the multiverse theory, how his, growing up, he had, a giant, stack of DC comics, and that kind of made him get away from some of his, growing up problems. So, you have, all these legit actors and actresses who even though like the Marvel people might have like pictures of them reading stuff, like nobody does it like we do. I remember um, Ben Affleck even wrote an intro to a Daredevil comic, because his friend Kevin Smith wrote it. But, even in interviews, he was like, yeah, I've been a fan of Frank Miller's Daredevil, and I like his take on The Dark Knight Returns. He's always been kind of a giant comic book fan. Henry Cavill, he named his dog Cal, and he wears flannel, like Clark Kent, Gal Gadot. All these, like, all the actors are really well picked, and you kind of have to thank Zack Snyder for infusing the enthusiasm of DC Comics. But I've always noticed that some of the writers are actually better on the DC side. I mean, one of their best writers was Michael Bendis from Marvel, and he's working for DC now. But even before that, I never really envied anybody. Yeah, you had like a bunch of one-liners, but one-liners don't give you Grant Morrison, and his amazing take on the Justice League in the 90s. That thing is like a seminal work of amazing fiction. Even later with like Final Crisis and Multiversity. Dude, fucking Grant Morrison is amazing. And actually, go ahead and check out his book, Super Gods. If you want something intellectual to stimulate your brain and about DC Comics and about Grant Morrison, it's an amazing book. He pulls no punches, no bullshit. Fucking awesome. But what else can we say? I mean, we started off with great writers, The Man of Steel was started because one of the Superman creators, lost her dad. I mean, how fucking intellectually cool that is. That's like things that you can bring to a college paper. You can talk about what Superman meant to sons of Jewish immigrants and, all the subtext and stuff like that. Some of the best writers we have, Denny O'Neil, Frank Miller. Lately Neil Gaiman has returned to the DC universe and has been doing the Sandman universe, which, oh man, it's going to be fucking awesome. So we have a lot of intellectual writers, and that kind of brings intellectual fan base. If you have a writer who's just going to shock people, like Dan Slott, I'm not a fan of that guy. He tends to poke fans and then shame them for being like, hey, what the fuck? I was just minding my own fucking business. I call that slot shaming. He's done that shit a bunch of times, and he don't say shit to me. It's not like I want to pick a fight, but the fucker keeps talking shit. And I'm like, hey, dude, knock that shit off. So, that's the best they got over there. Lately, we have Scott Snyder, killing it with the Batman book, the Batman Metal, and now he's going to Justice League. And my new favorite, Tom King, ex-CIA officer, but he is, oh man, fucking brilliant with Mr. Miracle. You kind of have to thank the biased media. They were propping up, Tom King when he was doing Marvel's The Vision, and they're like, oh my god, he's the best writer ever. Started doing DC, and they're like, how about that Groot? So that's the coolest shit about for me to talk to you guys. I couldn't have a fucking intellectual Marvel, podcast. And I actually have a very nice, group of friends on Facebook that we talk about all this intellectual shit. 2 years down after Batman vs. Superman, and we were able to find intellectual references. I think there were more than 250 entries, I believe, in the contest by Fiona and Zack Snyder. So that is fucking amazing. Our fan base is a little bit more different. We tend to read other things in comics. We tend to read about literature, politics, history, how things work. We don't just laugh at Deadpool because it's stupid. We kind of want smart comedy, even if it's like dumb comedy by smart people. We fucking love that shit. So yeah, we have a lot more of intellectual fan base, and I think it's because of the variety of books. I know that Mr. Alan Moore poo-poos about it, but a lot of people got into comics because of Watchmen, and Frank Miller kind of has gone back a little to common sense. After talking shit about the Occupy movement, and his love for New York kind of made him go crazy. After 9/11. And yeah, it's like one of those comedians that just vents on stage, and you're like, dude, just get yourself a fucking psychologist and make it work. So that's what we talk about here. There's a reason why the anonymous hacker group, chose V for Vendetta, The Mask. Quite honestly, we've had those kind of intellectual graphic novels on DC, and the fact that, movie critics here in the USA don't like intellectual smart comic book stuff, it shows more about their bullshit than us. No one has the insanity to say like black people shouldn't be smart. Nobody has the capacity of saying Latinos should stay silent and not make movies. But apparently comic book as a medium, as a genre, they put a lid on that shit. That's why like movies like Wonder Woman and Black Panther, they kind of were like, we're going to do our own thing. And if you're going to be an asshole, you're going to be an asshole, and everybody's going to know. Which just kind of brings me, to kind of like the whole thing of representation. I think that having an organic, representation, it's really, really amazing. If Marvel was interested in representation, they would have had like a War Machine movie, Falcon movie. The one I needed was Nick Fury, instead of like Agent Coulson and his stupid TV show, or Inhumans for that fucking reason. Give me a goddamn good, minority movie. Don't make me wait almost 20 movies for Black Panther. And, Black Panther only got greenlit because of Cyborg. There was going to be a Cyborg movie that Zack Snyder planned, and, that shit fell through. But it did give us Black Panther, because Marvel was like, ooh, let's imitate that. Marvel also was like, ooh, Batman vs. Superman. Let's have Captain America fight Iron Man. Yeah. So, even now, some asshole was like, hey, will, Brie Larson's Captain Marvel be better than Wonder Woman? It's like, we haven't seen shit. So, the intellectual base knows when they're full of shit. I'd rather have organic integration of diversity, even. For instance, I worked at a bookstore when one of Marvel's characters, North Star, got married. And there were a bunch of customers who were like, who's North Star? What? Compare that to, Midnighter and Apollo from DC, Wildstorm, universe from The Authority. They were kissing on the cover, so people were like, whoa, I want to read this. And they're like, whoa, it's a superhero group. Whoa, it's from DC. Whoa. It's kind of like, Midnighter's kind of like Batman, and Apollo's kind of like an iconic version of Superman, and they're a couple? What? So, it was like a natural progression integration. And I always hated tokenism. I don't like the idea of like, we've got one of those, which is what Marvel tried to do to rectify the white bread, white Avengers from the 60s to appeal to white baby boomers, and that was their main marketing, appeal to who's buying these books. And, currently, if you try to do that shit cheaply, it'll backfire. I'm kind of sad that the Marvel books were not selling when they were racially and, sex gender diverse and religiously diverse. It sucked. Meanwhile in DC, fuck it, dude. If one book gets canceled, we put Jaime, Blue Beetle in another book, and then we'll fucking put somebody else in another book. But we're gonna keep diversity going. I think one of the reasons why I like DC better is because they're not pandering to us. John Stewart as a Green Lantern wasn't like the plucky sidekick, like like Falcon or War Machine. He was just his own fucking man, and in a weird way, a much better Lantern than Kyle or even Hal Jordan for a while, because of his strict military upbringing, whereas Hal was just a dumbass, happy-go-lucky cool pilot. I still like Kyle though. Kyle's pretty fucking awesome because he draws and I draw. So, but anyways, you can see the integration of these characters. Even Guy Gardner, the spunky redheaded kid. He became the stereotypical redheaded bastard kid. That here in the U.S. they love to say, but I'm like, shit, that's fucking offensive, dude. Guy Gardner has come to a better place, in some of the recent books, and that's the thing. Now we have a Muslim and the Latina Green Lanterns as protagonists of their own books, and it wasn't like, look, we have one of those. It was more like, my God, it's fucking integration. Especially the Latina Green Lantern that I showed you in the intro, man. She had to go through hell and back, literally Earth 3, just to fucking get that ring going. It was a pretty fucking cool, and Simon Bass too. His whole backstory. People thought that he was like a gun user and shit, to kill people. It's like, oh man. So yeah, integration is a little bit better because the fan base is a little bit more intellectual. And one of the things that I don't want to get too much into is that when you have an intellectual conversation, you don't ostracize the opposite team. One of the reasons why things have gotten so bad that you can't talk about anything that isn't polarized, like console wars or political parties or Marvel versus DC, is because people have gone to the extreme and the middle tends to disappear. As far as intellectualism and in the left and right wing spectrum, I think a lot of the what used to be the the level-headed conservatives are kind of being pushed away from the fringe of the right wing. The fringe right wing is taken over, and the common sense conservatives are pushed to the middle. Same thing with Democrats, and liberals. Like the common sense liberals are pushed to the middle, and that might be cool because in the middle they can find commonalities and maybe form a third party or make the world a better place. But I've had intellectual conversations with people that I disagree. I'll post one later. Me and Penn from Penn and Teller, actually, or was it Gillette? It was a tall guy who talks a lot. One of my friends was running for a Libertarian Party, and he's a Libertarian. I think Gillette, and him and I had a little discussion online, on Facebook, several years ago. I want to say like 6 or 7 years ago. And it was very civil. I disagreed with him a lot, but it was pretty fucking civil. And that's the coolest thing, you kind of want to be able to. I would love to talk with Marvel people, but unfortunately, they're kind of scared of me because I don't tend to argue feelings. I don't argue choices. I just say facts, and it's a hard position to back away from. If if they say something like, well, that Infinity movie is making a lot of money, and then you go, inflation. They have no idea how to combat that. They're like, what? Wait, what? Movie tickets have gone up? What? So yeah, I mean, I'd rather have my brain than have true believers in my life. So if you're like feeling down about DC, fuck it, dude. Just talk to us, and you can talk about anything, and we'll amp you up. And of course, last but not least, what to amp you up and make you excited about DC Comics? Well, fuck, dude, the comics themselves, man. We got a lot of cool stuff right now. If you haven't checked out, well, first and foremost, if you heard that the new 52 sucks, get the shit out of your head and tell anybody who says that to go fuck themselves. No, I'm just kidding. I can prove that New 52 was really fucking amazing. It allowed digital same day as print, and I can tell you why. That shit saved a lot of creators, because Marvel started doing it, and then Comixology started to offer it to small independent people. The stories themselves from New 52 were fucking amazing. Grant Morrison started doing Superman in his younger years. And at first we thought that the Flash was, culprit of, the New 52, as hinted by Flashpoint. There was always intrigue, with the character Pandora, who was in the background in a lot of comics, and people started going, what the fuck? And once Pandora's box was opened, it led to the third year of the New 52 into Earth 3, which is the bad guys, the bad guy universe, the Injustice Society. So yeah, it was pretty fucking awesome. And within those comics, you found some really cool stuff. Scott Snyder worked on Swamp Thing, and that was brilliant. It was definitely kind of hinting at the best that, Lin Wein wrote, and even Alan Moore, so it was really good quality. Snyder also worked on Court of Owls, fucking amazing. Wonder Woman was given a brand new origin, kind of, but really fucking amazing by Brian Azzarello. So Superman also worked with George Perez, drawing the later years of, the Man of Steel. There was a lot of amazing commentary about journalism, and this is when the Arab Spring was going on. So Superman talking about the death of journalist integrity to let corporate giants shut the internet down was fucking amazing during the, Arab Spring. So yeah, we had a lot of fucking mainstream gems, but it also gave us some really awesome diversity that kind of paid off, after Rebirth. We got Simon Bass, the Latina, so Muslim and Latina Green Lanterns. But we also got LGBT representation with Bunker, which is awesome. And then also we got, Midnight and Apollo into the DC universe instead of the Wildstorm, universe. They kind of joined, and it was fucking beautiful. So we have stories like that are, people were like, well, I don't know how the New 52 Rebirth, it's selling well. Well, it doesn't have to sell well. I mean, fuck. I bought all the Blue Beetle comics from New 52, and I was like, dude, Jaime Reyes is badass. I fucking loved him. And I think around the time I was also buying Mr. Terrific, because I was like, fuck yeah, he's cool. And Mr. Terrific kind of played a key role into discovering Earth 2. I want to say the second year. And yeah, Earth 2 was like a fucking gem, that kept on giving. Unsurprising hit, from New 52. Fuck yeah, you should check out all the Earth 52. And yeah, so currently right now, we're doing DC, it's doing the New Age of Heroes. Out of that, the Immortal Men are kind of they caught my interest. Sideways looks exciting, he's kind of like a combination of Terry McGinnis, very poseable, across the sky. Just there's something really cool about Sideways. I really like that. Also, Batman has a new sidekick, the Signal, another great addition to the DC universe. And like I said, it's all organic. For instance, like since we have Jaime Reyes as Blue Beetle, we still have Ted Kord, which is pretty fucking great. And that's the thing, a lot of people, who grew up with these characters, like, mostly baby boomers, they just wanted Hal Jordan as the Green Lantern, even though there was another Green Lantern prior. They want to ignore that, and they couldn't accept, Guy Gardner, all these other lanterns, but they kind of shut the fuck up and they learned to enjoy it. Same thing with all the Flash family, all the Batman family. For instance, Superman has a kid, but that's not unusual since we had Connor, from the 90s. So, I mean, a lot of these awesome, comics, they kind of don't let old readers down, but they also excite new readers. Young Animal, I was kind of skeptical and kind of chucked at the Milk Wars, but it turned out to be a pretty enjoyable run. Doomsday Clock is going a little bit slower than I would love. Hopefully, when the Absolute Edition comes out in book format, they can add more substance to it. But currently, I gotta say, Before Watchmen is looking a little bit more ambitious than Doomsday Clock. I still like it, but that's just my opinion. And that's the thing, though. Even if something not giving you 100% satisfaction, I'm still fucking engaged, by Doomsday Clock. And, because I read Before Watchmen, my whole fucking room is decorated with Watchmen movie. So, even if it's something that's like, well, it could be better, I still fucking like it. And, yeah, I think I'm going to close with something really fucking awesome, to kind of give you positivity, again. Somebody in a Latin American Facebook post, they posted something about Justice League, the movie. And I found the perfect analogy to Justice League movie. And, I'm from Mexico. And if you hear stuff from Mexico, from the news, from USA News, you hear, kidnapping, deaths, and shit like that. Like, oh, don't go there. But if you actually buy a Mexican newspaper, you would read that, in Mexico City is one of the safest cities to be around. There are over 200 events any given Saturday and Sunday. It's an art city. It's a very intellectual city. There's also a lot of protests, but that's how you get rights. You protest for shit. So I also watch a lot of television from Mexico, and I watch local news. Some local news complain about a malfunctioning light in a tiny neighborhood. I mean, that's scandalous. Don't go to Mexico. One light doesn't work. So I know my Mexico. I fucking love Mexico, and I know that given all the natural resources, the people, the culture, I know that the people behind the scenes who run Mexico fuck it up. And it's not at its full potential. It's flawed, but I love it. Sure, it could be better, but I fucking love it. So that's a thing. That's one of the things that I can relate to the Justice League movie. It's like, sure, it's flawed, but it's my flaw. It's my flawed love. I don't think any of us are 100% a perfect human being. I don't think any country is the number one country. Hate to break it to you. So if you love something even if it has flaws, you don't fucking stop loving it. You know, whether it's like, you know, your country, your football, soccer, you know, team, your friends, your work, your family, you know, boyfriend, girlfriend, non-denominary gender partner, or any kind of thing that makes you happy, you know, any kind of hobby. Like, you don't stop loving it because it doesn't meet somebody else's criteria. I think if you love something, it has to meet your criteria, and that's all that matters. So anyways, I hope this was kind of invigorating for DC fans. I know that I rambled long, but I might take a little bit of a break. I might come back in a couple weeks, you know, just because I want to have good news and stuff. Or I might just do a tiny podcast. Anyways, Dilesia DC. Don't focus on the bullshit. I'll see you guys soon. Bye.
My boss says this kid gives him hope.
That's where it starts.
Don't forget to show love.
Everyone who meets Austin leaves with hope. Which is why, with any luck, someday President Austin won't be a superhero anymore.
Feeding the homeless is the highlight of my life.
He'll just be a president.
All right, come on, Austin.